So my first extended assignment in Sadek province was to be a rural development advisor in Duc Thanh district. So Sadek's divided up into 4 districts, each one made up of about 7, 8, 9 villages. And I was to work in Duc Thanh, which was along the Basak River, which was the southernmost branch of the Mekong River, coming out of Cambodia into Vietnam and flowing to the South China Sea. And there we had 8 villages, all of them connected by an old dirt road built by the French sort of as a farm-to-market road. It was all rutted and broken down, and you could hardly get up and down it. Now, we, the U.S. government, through USAID, had let a contract, and we had engineer advisors, and we were upgrading the road. And we had upgraded it through 4 of the 8 villages. At the same time, quite by serendipity, not part of any plan, agricultural advisors had arrived with new miracle rice. It was known by its research name, IR8. It had been developed at the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines by a man named Hank Beechel, who was from Nebraska. And he was working on rice at the same time Norman Borlaug was working on miracle wheat over in India and Pakistan. So IR8 miracle rice arrives in South Vietnam. Advisors are out trying to go through all of my 8 villages to convince farmers to use this new miracle rice because it could grow in half the time of traditional rice and produce 3 or 4 times the amount of yield or crop that you get out of it. And so, being a city kid, I hardly understood why plants grew, and I knew nothing about rice and genetics. But I'd be going out and seeing how the projects are going. My job was to be a coordinator, and I'm driving through all 8 villages, sometimes bumping up and down on that old broken down road, sometimes moving nicely on the upgraded, fixed road, very smooth through 4 of the villages. And then I noticed, and I learned the lesson of my life, because it was only in those villages where we had fixed the road that farmers used the miracle rice. There was nothing to keep them from using it in other villages, but somehow the road was integrally connected to the use of the miracle rice. And as farmers grew the new miracle rice, their yield doubled, tripled, quadrupled. Suddenly they had surplus income, and they used the money to fix up their houses, which would be much sturdier, metal roofs on them. They would buy little Hondas. Children were able to stay in school longer because they could get in little taxis and go from hamlet to hamlet, up and down the good road. Girls stayed in school longer. Child mortality went down because now moms could get sick kids out to medical help. And the most unanticipated result was that the Vietcong guerrillas, who had been so strong in those areas, seemed to evaporate. The prosperity that the roads and rice brought undercut the appeal of the Vietcong guerrillas, that young people no longer had any interest in following them. And the openness and flow of information up and down the road had this dramatic effect. It had been before that we needed security to go to the villages during the day, and you didn't go at night. Now we could go night and day anytime we wanted to those 4 villages. The other 4 with the bad road were unchanged unchanged economically from 100 years earlier, and unchanged in terms of the battle. It was this incredible lesson that, not as a result of a plan, by chance we were doing these two things, but I saw and understood the power of that combination. And of course, it's the same combination that uplifted Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, every state in the middle of America. It was building those farm-to-market roads over which the extension workers from Iowa State University or from companies like Pioneer Hybrid International could go out and take their new agricultural technology, their new seeds out to farmers. That's what transformed America. But apparently, we as a country had forgotten the lesson. It wasn't part of the plan. But I saw it 12,000 miles from home, from the state where I grew up. I learned the lesson of what had transformed America and what could transform South Vietnam and what could be one of our most potent weapons in dealing with insurgencies in rural areas. It was a lesson that would stay with me for the rest of my career and that I would use 20 years later to destroy the genocidal, mass-murdering Khmer Rouge in Cambodia.